Jonathan Smith Show on Indy Sports Ticket, 1430 AM, 93.9 HD2, and always on the free Indy Sports Ticket app.
What's going on? Welcome into the real Jonathan Smith Show here on Indy's Sports Ticket. Hopefully you had a nice start to your week yesterday. Hopefully you have cleared out your schedule for tonight. Pacers, Cavaliers, Game 5, set to start at 7 o'clock. I think it's on TNT. I don't know. I just know it's on TV, and I'm going to watch it, and I'm going to have a blast, and I'm going to sit there on my couch. My wife's probably going to sit beside me. She's probably going to crochet or do something like that while I'm watching the game and freaking out over, whatever happens throughout the course of the game. Now, I can't wait for this game tonight because I think the game is going to be awesome, and I think that the Pacers need to win tonight. Donovan Mitchell's probably going to be hobbled. Seems like he's going to play. I don't think that the Pacers would be 7.5-point underdogs if Donovan Mitchell was not going to play. If he's not on the floor for Cleveland, then the Indiana Pacers should 1,000% win that game. The Pacers are significantly healthier. Okay, organizations win championships. I know that we get caught up in players and coaches and general managers and all these things, which are all obviously very important. But organizations, top to bottom, are what win titles. And a team's medical staff is a large part of an organization. That's an advantage the Pacers have to exploit in this game and throughout this series. The Pacers medical staff has done a tremendous job of keeping the Pacers pretty healthy these last 2 years. Meanwhile, the Pacers have been playing teams that seem to get injured left and right. We had another big injury happen last night in the NBA. Jason Tatum probably tore his Achilles. It's brutal. I hate it for the guy. At the same time, I'm glad that the Pacers are now probably going to play the Knicks, then the Boston Celtics. So the medical staff has done an excellent job of keeping the Pacers healthy. Also, even if this is, I think, another good thing about the Pacers. Last year, when Tyrese Haliburton got hurt, they obviously got worse because Tyrese Haliburton is their best player. But given the style of basketball that they play, all five guys on the floor matter, and they move the ball, and they play together. When Tyrese Haliburton or Pascal Siakam get hurt, because it does happen occasionally, the Pacers don't really miss a beat. They're able to just kind of keep going because it is a true all five guys on the floor matter. Whereas, you're going to watch the Cavaliers tonight, potentially, Donovan Mitchell is a game-time decision. Their offense is going to look very different because they don't have Donovan Mitchell. The Boston Celtics, tomorrow night, when they play against the Knicks, their offense is going to look very different without Jason Tatum, especially Boston, because they're just, cleared out for Tatum and let him go to work. That's just kind of how they do things. So the style with which the Pacers play, I also think that's part of why Haliburton and Siakam don't get hurt. They aren't asked to just completely and totally shoulder the load offensively like Donovan Mitchell and Jason Tatum have both been asked to do for their teams throughout the playoffs. But, that's a different topic. Once again, tip of the cap to the Pacers medical staff for keeping this roster pretty healthy for the most part, outside of the two Achilles that got torn very early in the season between James Wiseman and Isaiah Jackson. Now, part of why I think the Pacers win this game tonight is because not only do they have a health advantage, but the Cavaliers just got their teeth kicked in. Their best player is going to be hobbled at best. Now, they'll be amped up, playing the game at home, trying to get some revenge, trying to stave off elimination. I also think that they're going to be a little fragile because they have a huge uphill battle in front of them. They're down 3-1. They're incredibly banged up. It's not even just Donovan Mitchell. DeAndre Hunter dislocated his thumb. Evan Mobley has an ankle issue. Darius Garland's toe appears to still be bothering him. Donovan Mitchell, obviously the ankle. Those are four highly important Cleveland Cavalier players. Three of the four are the Cavaliers' three best players. That's a lot to battle against. And if the Pacers came out and they went on like a 10-0 run to open the game, and we looked up and the first quarter was over and the Pacers were up by 14, If the Cavaliers folded, I wouldn't really be surprised. I don't think that they will, because teams with real expectations coming into the playoffs usually don't fold. Usually the teams that quit and roll over are teams with no expectations. Think about the Miami Heat against the Cleveland Cavaliers in round one. The Heat were a 10 seed. They were just happy to have made it out of the play-in tournament. The Cavaliers, however, very different. The 1 seed, were expecting to win the Eastern Conference and have a shot at winning the NBA Finals. That was their expectation before the NBA playoffs started, so I would be shocked if they didn't, have some fight in them. Okay, I expect for the Cavaliers to get off to a good start tonight. I think the game is actually going to be really close because closeout games are tough. They are. The other team obviously doesn't want their season to end normally. And the Pacers have obviously won closeout games these last 2 seasons. Beat the Bucks in 5, beat the Knicks in 7 last year, beat the Bucks in 6 last year. Okay? And all of those wins, all of those closeout game wins have one thing in common. Tyrese Halliburton was excellent in all of them. He had 26 points and 9 assists. In Game 7 against the Knicks last year, he had 26 points on 59% shooting from the field to go along with 9 assists. Excuse me, 6 assists. My bad. No, not 9 assists. I'm right. There we go. Against the Bucks last year, he had 17 points and 10 assists. Against the Bucks this year, he had 26 points and 9 assists. Tyrese Halliburton has a history of playing incredibly well in closeout games, which is important because you're not winning a closeout game in the NBA unless your best player, really best players, are awesome. You're not winning them unless your best players show up and play like your best players. Okay? And so the fact that Tyrese Halliburton has a history of being dominant, because that's what he's been, in these closeout games is very important for the Pacers if they want to end this series in 5 games, which they do, because the Knicks are going to end their series in 5 games. So if Donovan Mitchell plays tonight, I think we're going to see something similar to Game 2 in the series. I think it's going to be close. I don't think that we're going to have some crazy 20-point comeback, but I do think that we're going to see a highly aggressive, get to the rim whenever he wants to, Donovan Mitchell, because that's what he's done all series. And he's going to do everything that he can to keep the Cavaliers in that game. We're probably going to see the best game we've seen from Darius Garland. He was really good in Game 3, but I think we see him take it to another level. I think we'll see Evan Mobley be much more involved on the offensive end of the floor, unlike Games 3 and 4. And because of that, your stars have to play well. And that's obviously Pascal Siakam and Tyrese Halliburton. We just went through the history of Halliburton in these closeout games the last 2 years. He's been really good. Siakam has a history of being great in closeout games as well. He wasn't great in Game 5 against the Bucks. He wasn't. But last year against the Knicks in Game 7, he went for 20 points, 4 rebounds, and 4 assists. In the closeout game against the Bucks last year, Game 6, he went for 19 points, 7 rebounds, and 4 assists. Going back to the 2018-2019 season, when he won the title with the Raptors, he was great in closeout games. He had 24 points, 6 rebounds, and 4 assists in the second round. In the round against the Sixers, or excuse me, in the first round. In the second round against the 76ers, he had 11 points and 11 rebounds. Not a great stat line, but a very impactful double-double in what was a very close game. That's the, Kawhi Leonard takes the fadeaway 3 in the corner and it bounces on the rim 37 times and then eventually drops. And then we get the image of Joel Embiid crying as he walks back to the locker room. Against the Bucks in the Eastern Conference Finals in the 2018-19 season, he had 18 points and 4 rebounds in that closeout game. And then Game 6 of the NBA Finals against the Golden State Warriors, the obviously very banged up, no Klay Thompson, no Kevin Durant Golden State Warriors. He had 26 points, 10 rebounds, and 3 assists. Like, this is a player in Pascal Siakam who consistently rises to the occasion in closeout games. And that's what you have to have. The Pacers have two players like that. And they'll need those two guys, Tyrese Halliburton and Pascal Siakam, to continue to be great tonight to close the Cavaliers out on the road, especially if Donovan Mitchell plays. If Donovan Mitchell doesn't play, Pacers cruise. They win by double digits or something like that. I don't really expect it to be much of a contest because he has clearly been the most important player in this series for Cleveland. Love Darius Garland. He's clearly not 100%. He's clearly not. Like a lot of the offensive load has fallen on Donovan Mitchell's shoulders. Ty Jerome was supposed to shoulder some of that load with Darius Garland being hurt, but he's been atrocious. DeAndre Hunter hasn't been very good. Like the other guys who have the ability to carry the offensive load for the Cleveland Cavaliers haven't been good in this series. Meanwhile, guys like Tyrese Halliburton, Pascal Siakam, TJ McConnell, Benedict Mathurin, the players who shoulder the offensive load for the Pacers, they've all been really good. They have been. And so if Donovan Mitchell does not play, I expect the Pacers to roll. With that being said, I think he does play. It is an elimination game, even though that clip of him coming out at halftime of game 4 to test the ankle doesn't look great. Doesn't look great. So I like the Pacers tonight, whether Donovan Mitchell plays or not. Obviously, if Mitchell plays, it'll be closer, but the Pacers have just been better than Cleveland in this series. Not only have the Pacers stars been pretty good with the exception of game 3, but all of the other things that the Pacers have needed to do to win this series, they have done. They've outshot the Cavaliers in every single game. Even game 3, the worst game by far that the Indiana Pacers have played in, they outshot the Cleveland Cavaliers. They have played great defense through all 4 games. Even game 3, the one of which they lost, they held the Cavaliers to only 42% shooting from the field. That is great defense. You said, well, Jonathan, why'd the Cavaliers score so many points? Because the Pacers, I guess they thought that rebounding was optional that night, okay? So if the Pacers can continue to defend like they have throughout this series, if they can continue to, have the Cavaliers struggle from 3. Yes, I know they shot 40% from 3 in game 4, but they were only shooting, 26.5% from 3 at halftime when the starters actually played. I don't care if the, 12th guy on the bench for Cleveland gets hot in the second half because they're not going to have an impact on the outcome of the series. They have consistently held the Cavaliers to 30% from 3 or lower throughout this series. If they can continue to do that tonight, then they're going to have an excellent chance to win the game. If they can continue to get more production from their bench than the Cavaliers, then they're going to have an excellent chance to win. I'm going to feel great about their chances because those are the two things that the Cleveland Cavaliers have done at a high level all year. They can shoot the ball at, as well as anyone in the league. I think just based off of the number of threes that they take and the percentage that they shoot from 3, I would say that they're the best 3-point shooting team in the NBA. And the Pacers have just completely nullified that. Ty Jerome, I would have voted him as the 6th man of the year. Completely nullified. DeAndre Hunter was supposed to be a big deal for Cleveland. The only time we talked about Hunter was the excellent acting job that got Benedict Mathurin tossed in game 4. Meanwhile, the Pacers bench has just outscored the Cavaliers bench in every game except for game 1. But when you go back and you look at game 1, the scoring was much more balanced coming off of the Pacers bench, whereas for the Cavaliers, really only 2 guys scored the basketball. Like the Pacers are just simply, they have been at least, the better team in this series. Everything that Cleveland does at a high level that made them to be considered the team with the 3rd best odds to win the title, because that's what they had before the playoffs started. Those 2 things that kind of separated them from everyone else, the Pacers have done better than them. They've shot the ball better from 3. They've ran better offense. They've had a higher field goal percentage than the Cavaliers in every game that's been played so far. And then the bench has been better than the Cavaliers. If the Pacers continue to limit the Cavaliers' ability to shoot the ball from 3, and their bench continues to outperform the Cavaliers' bench, then they'll probably win tonight because I expect for Tyrese Halliburton and for Pascal Siakam to each have great games tonight. whether Donovan Mitchell plays or not, it's not really going to matter. Obviously, if Donovan Mitchell does not play, then I expect for the Pacers to win pretty easily. I know they lost Game 5 to the Bucks last year when Giannis and Damian Lillard both didn't play in Game 5. That's the game where Patrick Beverley, I think, went for like 30 points and 12 assists, something kind of crazy like that. But this Pacers team is better than they were last year. Donovan Mitchell doesn't play. I fully expect for them to take care of business and then start to get ready for the New York Knicks. Now, if Donovan Mitchell does play, then I expect for the Pacers to win a tough game because this is a tough team. They are simply better than the Cleveland Cavaliers. That's what we've seen so far throughout this series, and I know that injuries play a role in that. Once again, organizations win titles, not teams. And the fact that this Pacers medical staff has done an excellent job of keeping this team healthy, like it's going to play a role in them winning, this series and maybe even the NBA Finals. Like we're at that point. Like that is a real possibility for the Pacers this season. Like they could really win the NBA Finals. It's crazy. I know. So I like them to win tonight. I think 7.5 points is insane. That's just way too big of a line. I also expect, with that line being 7.5, I do expect for Donovan Mitchell to play tonight because if they knew that he wasn't going to play, then, the line would not be 7.5. No other way to really put it. When we come back here in about 4 minutes, we're going to continue to talk Pacers and Cavaliers, really more Cavaliers. We're going to talk Donovan Mitchell, the ankle injury, and just how dominant that guy has been during this series. All that when we come back here in about 4 minutes.
favorites in today's sports world. It's here. The real Jonathan Smith Show on Indy Sports Ticket 1430 AM, 93.9 HD2, and always on the free Indy Sports Ticket app.
Welcome back to the real Jonathan Smith Show here on Indy's Sports Ticket. Thanks for tuning in, no matter how you're tuning in. Whether that's YouTube, Indy Sports Ticket, if you want to head over there and subscribe. Maybe you're watching on Twitter, _ Jonathan Smith. Maybe you're watching or listening via that Indy Sports Ticket app, which you can download wherever you find your apps. And if you want a little more from me, you can go check out my YouTube page. My take is, now, Donovan Mitchell hurts his ankle in Game 4. And, it stinks for him. It's good for the Pacers. It is. That's the simple reality of it. He is a game-time decision for tonight. I think he's going to play. The line would not be 7.5 in favor of the Cavaliers if Donovan Mitchell was not going to play. He re-aggravated. That is the wording of the injury. He re-aggravated a left ankle injury. I'm expecting him to play, and I'm expecting for him to be awesome because that dude is simply a stud. He is one of the best playoff performers in the history of the NBA. And that is not a hyperbolic statement. It's not. There are 7 players in the history of the NBA playoffs to average 28 points or more per game in the playoffs. Okay? Donovan Mitchell's one of them. The other 6 are Michael Jordan, Luka, the only 2 players in the history of the NBA playoffs to average 30 points or more for their playoff careers. Allen Iverson is on the list, Kevin Durant, Jerry West, and LeBron James. It's a pretty great list to be on. And then obviously Donovan Mitchell on that list as well. And I was going through all this last night, and I was reading about it, and I was like, you know what? It's just really hard to win a 7-game series. And I think that we forget that because Michael Jordan and Kobe Bryant and LeBron James and Steph Curry have all just made it look so easy to win in the playoffs that we forget how hard it is to win. And Donovan Mitchell is on this list of dudes that raise their game to incredibly high levels when the playoffs start. And that's what people want from stars. They want dudes who, are going to give you 45 on a night when you really need it. And Donovan Mitchell's the kind of guy who does that. And it's one of the biggest things that we discuss when we talk about like the legacy of NBA players. How do they perform in the playoffs? Donovan Mitchell has that box checked. And with that being said, Donovan Mitchell's never made it to a conference finals. Once again, very hard to win in the playoffs. Like the fact that the Pacers are on the verge of going to the Eastern Conference Finals 2 years in a row speaks to not only how good this team is, it speaks to how good of a head coach Rick Carlisle is. It speaks to the overall talent of the roster. It speaks to how great of a player Tyrese Halliburton is. It speaks to how great of a player Pascal Siakam is. And the whole Donovan Mitchell has never made it to the conference finals thing, it's going to turn ugly. Joel Embiid takes crap all the time for not making the Eastern Conference Finals. Donovan Mitchell, that slander is coming his way, but while I would argue that Joel Embiid deserves that slander, Donovan Mitchell doesn't, just because of the way that he has elevated his game, during the NBA playoffs. Everyone who's watched the Pacers in this series, anyone who's watched, Donovan Mitchell play in the playoffs, period, but everyone who's watched this series, whether you're a Pacers fan or a Cavaliers fan, you understand why I say that. Donovan Mitchell's been the best player on the floor. And I think every game except for game 1, I would argue that Tyrese Halliburton was the best player on the floor in game 1. But if you wanted to tell me that it was Donovan Mitchell, then I would say, you know what, hey, that's fine. Donovan Mitchell's been the best player on the floor, though, just about every game that's been played in during this series. He's gotten to the rim at will. He can generate an open look from 3 whenever he wants. They're just not falling in this series for some reason. But he can get a good look at the rim on a jumper whenever he wants to, and not even just for himself, for his teammates as well. The fact that he went for 48 points and like 9 assists in game 2 with, no Evan Mobley, no DeAndre Hunter, no Darius Garland speaks volumes as to how awesome this guy is. I mean, he's just been incredible. And then you compare him to a dude like Joel Embiid, who's, a good playoff performer, but come on, man. He hasn't raised his game to the same level as Donovan Mitchell. Donovan Mitchell has just been awesome, and he's going to play tonight. Once again, that 7.5 point line tells me Donovan Mitchell's playing, because if he's not, then the line simply wouldn't be that high. It wouldn't be. Okay, that also means that the rest of the Cavalier guys are playing too. That means, Darius Garland and Evan Mobley and DeAndre Hunter. And I got to be honest, I hope Donovan Mitchell doesn't play tonight. I really hope so, because as soon as that news drops, which will be, like right at the start of the game, then I'm going to go bet the Pacers on the money line. And because I think that it'll likely mean a win for the Pacers. Like Darius Garland, great player, all-star, probably going to be an all-NBA selection. He's clearly not healthy. Part of why he's fouling so much is just because laterally he can't move as quickly as he wants to. Like, that guy is one of the quickest players in the NBA. He is. And he can't move laterally to stay in front of dudes. And I think it's an indication of his toe still being hurt. Evan Mobley, outside of game 1, hasn't been super impactful. Ty Jerome, been bad all series except for game 1 when he went for 20 points and 8 assists. DeAndre Hunter, he's been irrelevant the entire series. They have to have Donovan Mitchell if they want any sort of chance to win this series. And it's really funny because the conversation around the Cleveland Cavaliers all year as someone who just loves basketball and watches everyone play, the conversation around the Cavaliers has been, hey, Donovan Mitchell finally has help. He can play bad, and the Cavaliers can still win because Darius Garland and Evan Mobley and, they got this guy, Ty Jerome. Like, they're all awesome. And so if Donovan Mitchell's not great, then the Cavaliers can still win games. It's just a reminder that the regular season and the postseason are not the same thing, and I get it. The Cavaliers are banged up, but that is not the case in this series. Donovan Mitchell absolutely 100% has to play if they want any sort of chance at winning this game. If he does play, I'll be nervous because he's very capable of winning games all by himself. He's one of the best playoff performers we've ever seen. He's been in the NBA 8 years, and every year he's made the playoffs. You know that he's going to be a stud when he walks out onto the floor, and he's done that again this year, and it scares the bejesus out of me because he's going to bring it. He's going to get to the rim, and he's going to finish, and he's going to draw a million fouls, and it's going to be so annoying. But that dude's a great player, and for the Pacers' sake, I hope he doesn't want. I hope he doesn't play tonight. He will, but I hope he doesn't. Now, the other big stories, because there's multiple, but one of the other big stories in the NBA is the draft lottery last night. For those curious, the Indiana Pacers are going to have the 23rd overall pick this year. And looking at very, very few mock drafts, Nick Clifford out of Colorado State, that's the guy who is projected to go 23rd overall to the Indiana Pacers. Now, the Mavericks win the lottery last night, and they're probably going to draft Cooper Flagg. I just read something on Twitter about how apparently Cooper Flagg's going to put pressure on the Mavericks to trade the first pick. I highly doubt that. I really do. I think that a lot of people would want to go play with Kyrie Irving and Anthony Davis and play in the playoffs immediately and have a chance to win the finals immediately, because that's where the Mavericks are likely going to be after this happens. But the Mavericks win the lottery, and people immediately say that it's rigged. Oh, it's rigged. It's rigged. The NBA is rigged. I told you. The NBA is rigged. The lottery, it's rigged. It's not. It's not rigged. It's not. I'm sorry. I don't think any sport is rigged, really. I think that people just really enjoy conspiracy theories, which leads us to our conspiracy corner. conspiracy corner where we talk about things. Well, we talk about conspiracy theories. And the one flying around right now is that the NBA draft is rigged. I would just say take off the tinfoil hat because it's not. Okay? Now, this conspiracy theory is coming from this place of the Mavericks famously traded Luka Doncic to the Lakers, and then they win the draft lottery with only a 1.8% chance to get the number 1 overall pick. And conspiracy theories happen when people don't like the outcome of something. And obviously, every other team in the NBA draft lottery doesn't like that the Mavericks won the lottery because they wanted Cooper Flagg. And now people are complaining about this. Okay? And here's the very simple reality. Ever since the NBA changed the odds of the lottery, the team with the worst record in the NBA has not won the lottery. Some people are complaining about this. I like it. It encourages teams not to tank. Seriously. And every single year, 2019, by the way, since they changed these draft odds, the team with the worst record in the NBA has not been given the number 1 overall pick. This also isn't the first time that we've seen a team with low odds win the lottery. Last year, the Atlanta Hawks had a 3% chance to win the lottery, and they won it. In 2019, the first year that they changed the odds, the Pelicans had a 6% chance to win the number 1 overall pick, and they did. And so for those of you who are unfamiliar with the odds, essentially what they did was before 2019, if you had the worst record in the NBA, you had a 25% chance to win the draft lottery. They dropped that number significantly. Now the teams with the worst, second worst, and third worst records in the NBA only have a 14% chance to win the draft lottery. Now, obviously, if you lower their odds, the other 11 teams in the lottery, their odds go up. And we've seen it result in the team with the worst record in the NBA consistently not getting the number 1 overall pick. And I'm fine with that. I don't think teams should be rewarded for tanking. But even before the odds got changed, this isn't the first time we've seen a team with criminally low odds win the NBA draft lottery. The Cavaliers won the lottery in 2014 with a 1.7% chance. In 2011, the Cavaliers won the lottery with a 2.8% chance. The Magic won it in 1993 with a 1.5% chance to win the lottery. Like, the Mavericks aren't the first team in NBA history to win the lottery with insanely low odds. And I understand that the timing of it makes it look fishy. But none of the other teams with low odds winning the lottery was rigged. Like, it just wasn't. Also, if the NBA was going to rig the lottery this year, it wasn't going to be for the Dallas Mavericks. Because Dallas, the Mavericks, will always be second fiddle to the Dallas Cowboys. That's how it works. Okay? If the NBA was going to rig the lottery for anyone this year, it would have been Philadelphia or Chicago. Both of those markets are simply bigger basketball markets than Dallas. Chicago hasn't been good in over a decade. The 76ers are dying for a winner up there. Those are the teams that the NBA would have rigged the lottery for, not Dallas. So, no, I don't think it was rigged. Also, this happens, and I start seeing all these graphics of like, this isn't the first time the NBA has rigged the lottery. Look at all of these other years where like a big trade was made, and then that team was given the number 1 overall pick. Well, how about like we just look at the opposite of it? How about we look at all the times a big trade was made and that team was not rewarded with the number 1 overall pick? Because it's happened a lot. The 76ers traded Charles Barkley to the Suns, and guess what? They were never rewarded with the number 1 overall pick. The Wizards sent Chris Webber to the Kings in 1998 for Mitch Richmond. And guess what? They didn't receive the number 1 overall pick. The Clippers and the Bulls won it the next 2 years. In 2019, when the Thunder sent Paul George to Los Angeles, the Clippers, to play with Kawhi Leonard, something that grabbed, the attention of the entire basketball world. Did you know that the Thunder actually weren't rewarded with the number 1 overall pick after it happened? In fact, it went to the Pelicans and the Timberwolves the next 2 years. In 2006, the 76ers sent Allen Iverson to Denver to play with Carmelo Anthony And the 76ers were not rewarded with the number one overall pick. The Raptors actually got it that year. The Trailblazers just sent Damian Lillard to the Bucks a few years ago. And the Trailblazers haven't been rewarded with the number one pick since that happened. In 2008, the Grizzlies sent Pau Gasol to the Lakers, essentially handed them 2 NBA titles for Marc Gasol, who ended up being a good player. But when he initially got traded, he wasn't a very good player. And the Grizzlies were never rewarded with the number one overall pick. In fact, the Bulls won it that year. In 2011, the Nuggets sent Carmelo Anthony, one of the biggest stars in the NBA at the time. They sent him to the biggest market in the NBA, the New York Knicks. And guess what? They didn't win the number one overall pick. The lottery is not rigged. I get it. There have been a few weird coincidences, like in 2019, the Pelicans trade Anthony Davis, and then they win the lottery. But let me remind you, the Pelicans were awful that year. Okay, they had the seventh best odds to win it. Like, that's not crazy, especially when we've seen the history of how the NBA draft lottery has gone after the changing of the odds. In 2013 and 2014, the Cleveland Cavaliers were terrible. Also, who's rigging the lottery for Cleveland? One of the smallest markets in the NBA. Everyone who watches the NBA tells me that the NBA hates small markets. So why are they rigging the lottery for New Orleans and Cleveland? That doesn't make any sense given what, I have been told about, the NBA. Okay. Also, the Cavaliers winning the lottery in 2013, 2014, and 2011. It's almost like when LeBron James, the second greatest basketball to ever play, the second greatest player to ever pick up a basketball. It's almost like when that guy leaves, your team becomes really bad. Who would have thought? 2012, after the New Orleans Hornets traded Chris Paul, they won the lottery. Guess what? They should have won it. They had a 15% chance to win it. Of course they won it. In 2011, 18 months after LeBron left Cleveland, the Cavaliers won the lottery, and they drafted Kyrie Irving. Again, I ask, who's rigging the lottery for Cleveland? And again, I say, are you really surprised that all of a sudden the Cavaliers were terrible after LeBron James left? I promise you, no one in the NBA is sitting around trying to figure out how to rig the lottery. Also, people watch the balls drop. They do. It sounded a little weird. I'm sorry. But they sit back and they watch what happens and they see how the balls come out. I promise if it was rigged, we would know. Also, once again, the NBA is not sitting around trying to figure out how to make the Cavaliers and the Pelicans good. Those are two of the smallest markets in the NBA. Jeez. Sorry. The NBA lottery, not rigged, but I get it if that's what you think. When we come back here in about 4 minutes, I'm gonna get ahead of myself a little bit. I'm gonna talk about the Pacers probably playing against the Knicks in the Eastern Conference Finals, because that seems to be where we're headed. Knicks, Pacers, what is that going to look like when we come back here in about 4 minutes?
may, one day, be a must-listen for sports enthusiasts.
Yeah, and monkeys might fly out of my butt.
Uh-oh. The Real Jonathan Smith Show on Indy Sports Ticket 1430 AM, 93.9 HD2, and always on the free Indy Sports Ticket app.
Welcome back to the Real Jonathan Smith Show here on Indy's Sports Ticket. Thanks for tuning in, no matter how you're tuning in, whether that's YouTube, Indy Sports Ticket. If you want to head over there and subscribe, maybe watch it on Twitter, __ Jonathan Smith, if you want to follow me there. You can also listen via the Indy Sports Ticket app, which you can download wherever you get your apps. And yeah, it's good. I'm all for it. Let's go. And last thing on the Mavs winning the lottery last night, because I do think this is important. That people have talked about, maybe the Mavericks trade Cooper Flag essentially, and like Anthony Davis for Giannis. C. Fitch, loyal listener to the show, which I appreciate. He tweeted at me and threw it out. Was like, hey, like they should like explore trading Flag and AD for Giannis. Absolutely not. No Kyrie this year. Also, if Nico Harrison traded Cooper Flag for, whatever, I Mavericks fans would legitimately burn his office to the ground. Like, that is kind of what I would expect. Okay, I don't think that they're going to make the same mistake twice. Okay, that would be very, very surprising to me. Now, let's get back on the Pacers track. The Pacers are probably going to play the Knicks in the Eastern Conference Finals. Jason Tatum probably tore his Achilles. That's what it appears to have. That's what it appears to have been. And yeah, it sucks because Jason Tatum was in the midst of having an awesome game. 42 points, 8 rebounds, 4 assists, 4 steals, and 2 blocks when he got hurt. To be fair to the Knicks, it looked like they were going to win anyway. And now it looks like we're going to have a Pacers and Knicks Eastern Conference Finals. Both teams are now up 3-1 in each of their respective series. And, the Pacers obviously have a chance to punch their ticket tonight. I can't wait for this probable series to happen. It's going to be outstanding. It's going to be electric for so many reasons. The clashing of styles is going to be awesome. Like, the Knicks want to play slow, grind you down. The Pacers want to play fast. The Knicks are more willing to run isolation stuff with like Karl Anthony Towns and Jalen Brunson. Meanwhile, the Pacers run very little isolation, with Tyrese Halliburton or Pascal Siakam. The Knicks go maybe 8 deep. The Pacers go 11 deep. I'm not convinced that the Knicks like all 8 of their players either. Both teams have outstanding point guards. They do. Like, Tyrese Halliburton is one of the best point guards in the NBA. Jalen Brunson is one of the best point guards in the NBA. The fact that they're both good friends makes it even better. Both teams have real flaws that you can attack. Tyrese Halliburton's not a good defender. Jalen Brunson's not a good defender. Karl Anthony Towns is not a good defender. The Pacers don't have a backup center. Thomas Bryant, I guess, but, come on. He looks more like a power forward when he's out there. The Knicks, they don't have any backup wings. It's OG Anunoby, Mikal Bridges, and that's it. And I know that the Pacers beat the Knicks in an epic series last year. It's really the only way that you can describe it. 7 games in the Garden. Pacers go in there, and they set a record for like the best field goal percentage in any playoff game ever. They shoot 63% from the field. It's just raining threes, and you have the Mother's Day Massacre. That's what we called it last year. Okay, that's what it was. And with that being said, the teams are very different this year than they were last year. Okay, I honestly, I'm glad that the Pacers are now probably going to play the Knicks rather than, the Celtics. But I do feel bad for Boston. I appreciate that they ran it back and they tried to repeat as champions. They're going to have to blow their team up this offseason just because of how expensive the roster is, and they just simply can't afford to keep it together. That's part of why Kevin Pritchard deserves all the praise that he's getting here as of late. He's drafted really well, and they're winning with important players not being paid very much money. Like Obi Toppin's not making a ton of money. Andrew Nembhard got extended, but he's not making a ton of money. Benedict Matherin's not making a ton of money. We can just keep working our way down through the list. Okay, but the Pacers are better than they were last year. They have Benedict Mathurin available this year. The Knicks are better than they were last year. They added Mikal Bridges and Karl Anthony Towns. So the series is going to be absolutely electric. It's going to be. And that's I haven't even brought up the history of the series and not even talking about last year's Game 7. Seriously, like, I mean, even before last year, you have all the Reggie Miller stuff, playing the Knicks in the Garden and the whole choke thing, and it's great. Like it is a great series for the NBA because there's been a lot of discussion around the ratings and the NBA ratings are down and all this kind of stuff, and they're up. They're up now. They've been up in these playoffs, and they're going to continue to go up simply because you got Pacers and Knicks. Like, who wouldn't want that? And then out west, you're probably going to get Anthony Edwards and Shai Gilgeous-Alexander going at one another. And what makes the playoffs even better this year is coming into it, there was a lot of there was this idea that it was pretty clear what was going to happen. It seemed like we were heading for this crash course Thunder versus either the Boston Celtics or the Cleveland Cavaliers in the NBA Finals. And that's obviously probably not going to happen. The Thunder, I think, are going to get there, but the Cavaliers and Celtics probably aren't. I say probably because those series aren't over yet. And before the year started, if you had mapped out if you ranked most probable NBA Finals, like Pacers and Thunder would have been towards the bottom. Not because the Thunder are great, but because people, didn't have a ton of respect for the Pacers and their run to the Eastern Conference Finals last year. It'd have been really low. If you'd said Timberwolves and Pacers in the NBA Finals, like that would have been even lower of all the potential options. And so I really like that we're having this. March Madness isn't the right word, but we're having these just unexpected runs. Seafitch saying, wait a second, maybe the NBA rigged the playoffs so that it'd be Pacers and Knicks in the Eastern Conference Finals. No, I don't. I hope that they're not rigging Jason Tatum tearing his Achilles and, Darius Garland hurting his toe and Evan Mobley hurting his ankle and DeAndre Hunter dislocating his thumb. That wouldn't be good. I don't think that the NBA would do that, but that's funny. So I can't wait for the series. It's going to be great. The series is going to be on TNT. And so that means that Kevin Harlan and Pacer great Reggie Miller are going to be calling the games as well, which I have mixed feelings about. I love Reggie Miller. He is, a legend, Hall of Famer, all those things. But like when he calls games, I don't know. He's just not for me. And that's okay. It's all right. I'm sure some of you out there really love him. So that series is going to be fantastic. I can't wait. It's going to be just an absolute joy to watch this Pacers team that didn't get the credit that it deserved last year when they went on this run, because the Pacers were a really good basketball team last year. And, they're obviously better this year. The defense has improved. Tyrese Halliburton's a year older. Benedict Matherin's a year older. He's actually, he's just back in general. But last year, it was very much chalked up to injuries. It's like, the Bucks weren't healthy and the Knicks weren't healthy. And then, you finally played a healthy Boston team and you got ran off the floor. Even though, no one wants to bring up that Tyrese Halliburton got hurt and didn't play in games 3 and 4 last year. But hey, it's neither here nor there. They weren't going to beat Boston last year anyway. And what's really nice is I don't think that that's going to be able to be said about the Pacers this year, just because the Knicks have been aided by injury. Jason Tatum goes down. When they played the Pistons didn't have Jaden Ivey. Isaiah Stewart got hurt in game 1 and didn't play the rest of the time. And, I've said this multiple times today during the show, and I firmly believe it, but organizations win titles, not teams and players. And having a good medical staff is so important because, this is a saying in the NFL, and I think we're seeing it apply more and more to the NBA as we continue to see guys get hurt in the playoffs. The best team doesn't win the Super Bowl or the NBA Finals. The healthiest team does. Simple as that, because like the Cavaliers just aren't as good as the Pacers when Darius Garland, Evan Mobley, DeAndre Hunter, and Donovan Mitchell are all trying to nurse injuries. Meanwhile, the Pacers are pretty healthy for the most part. And the Boston Celtics aren't as good as the New York Knicks when Kristaps Porzingis is dealing with some sort of unknown illness and Jason Tatum tears his Achilles. That's just the very simple reality of it. So once again, major tip of the cap to the Indiana Pacers. Not even just the front office, but even the medical staff who has done an excellent job of keeping the Pacers healthy all year long. When we come back at 11 o'clock, we're going to continue talking about this series, Pacers and Cavaliers, Game 5 tonight. The Pacers, I think they ended tonight, and there's history to support why I think they ended tonight. I'll share that history with you when we come back here in about 4.5 minutes.
do this. It's the Real Jonathan Smith Show on Indy Sports Ticket, 1430 AM, 93.9 HD2, and always on the free Indy Sports Ticket app.
Welcome back to the Real Jonathan Smith Show here on Indy's Sports Ticket. Hopefully you've had a nice start to your week. Happy Tuesday. Game 5. Pacers, Cavaliers tonight. If you're wondering why I haven't talked about the Colts playing in Germany or not, I'll do all that after the full schedule comes out. I hate the little teaser schedule thing where it's like, here's one game, here's 2 more. It's like, nah, man. Just like give me all of it. Let me decipher it. Let me sit down, make my over-under win total bets on the season. I would really like to do that. But hey, it's fine. Anyway, Pacers, Cavaliers, game 5 tonight. Your Pacers are currently 7.5-point underdogs. I haven't seen that line move. Let me refresh my little page here and see if it's going to move. Nope, it's still 7.5, which is just absurd to me. That's just insane. Okay, the Pacers need to win and are going to win this game tonight. Donovan Mitchell is going to be hobbled at a minimum. If he doesn't play, then just, Pacers all the way. The Pacers are just significantly healthier than the Cavaliers, and that matters so much. Organizations win championships, and a team's medical staff is a large part of the organization, and that is, an advantage that the Pacers have had these last 2 years. Look, I got to be honest. I don't know the names of anyone on the medical staff for the Indiana Pacers, but they have done an excellent job keeping the Pacers healthy. And I think part of this, too, is the players who we've seen gotten hurt, especially here recently between Donovan Mitchell and Jason Tatum. The guys who've gotten hurt are the players who have had to shoulder so much offensively. When you look at the Pacers, you know why Tyrese Halliburton and Pascal Siakam stay pretty healthy throughout the course of a season? Because they don't have the ball in their hands 80% of the time. Jason Tatum runs so many isolations, and he has the ball so much, and he goes to the rim so often, and he jumps and he bangs into dudes and all that stuff so often that it's kind of not surprising that he got hurt. Donovan Mitchell in this series, really, throughout the entire playoffs, because Darius Garland hasn't played. Darius Garland, when you look at the, advanced statistics, he had the ball in his hands more often than Donovan Mitchell did. And all of a sudden, Darius Garland's not playing. Donovan Mitchell has to initiate more offense. He's running more screen and rolls. He's attacking the rim more. Like, of course he hurt his ankle. His usage is way, way, way up. When you looked at the Knicks last year, they had guys get hurt. And it kind of made sense because they were playing 45 minutes a night. It's just kind of a numbers thing. If I play 45 minutes a night as opposed to 35, then the chances of me landing on someone's foot and spraining my ankle goes up. It just does. It's really that simple. And so the Pacers and their play style, I think, has helped them avoid injuries. And it is also, and the medical staff has done an excellent job in keeping these guys healthy. In addition to this, something that's really big for the Pacers is that, like, if someone gets hurt, they're fine. Remember last year when Tyrese Halliburton didn't play in games 3 and 4 of the Eastern Conference Finals against the Boston Celtics? What happened? The Pacers just slid Andrew Nembhard into that Tyrese Halliburton role. They obviously weren't as good because Tyrese Halliburton's a better player than Andrew Nembhard is. And that's not a slight towards Nembhard. Everyone who listens to the show knows how much I love Andrew Nembhard and the defense that he plays and the shot making that he brings. But, the Pacers just continue to run their offense. And something that I'm going to be really interested to see tonight is if Donovan Mitchell doesn't play, how do they adjust to the guy that has really been the only reason they've been in games so far throughout this series? Like, do we get more Ty Jerome? Come on now. Do we get more, Darius Garland without his big toe? Like, do we get more of that? Like, how's that going to work? Like, I'll be intrigued to see what happens if Garland doesn't play, and I'm going to be interested to see what the Celtics look like in their next game when they don't have Jason Tatum. It's just going to be more Jaylen Brown isolations. I don't know. I don't think so. We'll see. But the game tonight is going to be interesting. The Cavaliers just got their teeth kicked in that game 4 game. Pacers are making threes. Miles Turner goes on the run of a lifetime to close the first half. The Cavaliers' best player is going to be hobbled at best. And look, the Cavaliers are going to be amped up. They're going to be ready to go. Try and get some revenge. They're going to try to stave off elimination. Okay, closeout games are the hardest games to win in any series, especially if they're on the road. The Cavaliers are also going to be fragile, though. They have a huge uphill battle in front of them, and they're limping into this battle, both literally and figuratively. They're down 3-1. Just make that hill really big immediately. And then you have DeAndre Hunter with a dislocated thumb, Evan Mobley with, a messed up ankle. Darius Garland's toe appears to still be bothering him. Donovan Mitchell now has an ankle issue. Those are 4 highly important Cleveland Cavalier players. 3 of those 4 guys are the Cavaliers' 3 best players: Donovan Mitchell, Evan Mobley, Darius Garland. That is a lot to have to deal with. And if the series was tied 2-2, then, Cavaliers have a chance. Down 3-1, though, that banged up, I don't think so. If the Pacers were to come out in the first quarter and go on a 10-0 run to open the game, and then, you look up and the first quarter's over and the Pacers are up by 14, then maybe, just maybe, the Cavaliers fold. I don't think that's going to happen. I don't think that teams with very high expectations tend to quit in the playoffs. It's usually the teams that, aren't very good. Those are the teams that quit and go 1-2-3 Cancun. Think about the Heat just this year in that first round against the Cavaliers in the first round. The Heat were the 10th seed, the first 10 seed, by the way, to ever win the play-in game. And they win the play-in game, and it's cool. And everyone's like, Eric Spoelstra, great coach, because he is. And then they play Cavaliers, and they lose, games 1 and 2 on the road in Cleveland, and the games were really tough. And then they go back to Miami, and they just get crushed. And Darius Garland didn't even play in those games. Okay, the Heat were just happy to have made the playoffs. In games 3 and 4, they're like, all right, we'll see ya. We're done. Meanwhile, you take the Cleveland Cavaliers, who were expecting to not only play in, but win the Eastern Conference Finals. They, coming into the playoffs, expected to play in the NBA Finals with a chance to win the whole thing. That was the Cleveland Cavaliers' expectation before the playoffs started. And teams with that high of an expectation don't roll over, they don't quit. So I would be shocked if they didn't have some fight in them. Okay? I expect for the Cavaliers to get off to a good start, whether Donovan Mitchell plays or not, because closeout games are tough. And look, the Pacers have obviously won closeout games these last 2 seasons. And all of their wins have one thing in common. Tyrese Halliburton was excellent. He had 26 points and 9 assists in Game 7, or against the Bucks in Game 5 this year. In Game 7 against the Knicks last year, he had 26 points on 59% shooting and 6 assists. Against the Bucks last year, Game 6, he had 17 points and 10 assists. Tyrese Halliburton has a history of playing well in closeout games, which is important because he has to be good for the Pacers to close teams out. If Donovan Mitchell plays tonight, and I think he will, I think that's why the line's 7.5, which still feels way too high given all of the injuries that the Cavaliers are dealing with, then I think we're going to see a very similar Donovan Mitchell to what we saw in Game 2 of this series. And Donovan Mitchell is going to be highly aggressive. He's going to get to the rim all the time, like he has been all series. He's going to create a ton of space on his jump shot like he's done all series. And he's going to do everything that he can to keep the Cavaliers in that game. Now, will the supporting actors for the Cleveland Cavaliers, will they play well enough to give them a chance? By the way, Donovan Mitchell is at the Cavaliers shoot-around this morning. Look, the guy's playing. The line wouldn't be 7.5 if he wasn't going to play. So he's going to work his butt off tonight. He's going to find a way to keep the Cavaliers in that game, and which means that the stars for the Pacers have to play well. And that's obviously Pascal Siakam, who was great in Game 4, not 9 of 10 from the field, led the Pacers in scoring. He has to be great. And Tyrese Halliburton has to be great. And I just, went through the history of Tyrese Halliburton being great in closeout games in the playoffs. Siakam has a pretty solid history of being good in closeout games as well. He wasn't great in Game 5 against the Bucks, but he didn't need to be because Halliburton was awesome. But last year against the Knicks in Game 7, he had 20 points, 4 rebounds, and 4 assists. In Game 6 against the Bucks last year when the Pacers closed out Milwaukee, he had 19 points, 7 rebounds, and 4 assists. Going back to the 2018-19 season when he won the NBA Finals with the Toronto Raptors, he was good in closeout games in the first round. He had 24 points, 6 rebounds, and 4 assists in their closeout game. In the second round against the 76ers, Game 7, he had 11 points and 11 rebounds. It's not a great double-double, but hey, it was good enough for the Raptors to find a way to win that game. That's obviously the game where Kawhi Leonard takes the fadeaway 3 and the ball hits the front of the rim and it bounces on the rim a million times and then eventually went in. And then we get the shot of Joel Embiid crying as he walks back to the locker room. And then that same year, 2018, 2019, the Raptors played the Bucks in the Eastern Conference Finals, and Siakam had 18 points and 4 rebounds. And then against the Warriors in NBA Finals on the line, he goes for 26 points, 10 rebounds, and 3 assists to win the NBA Finals. Like this is a guy in Pascal Siakam who rises to the occasion in closeout games. And that's what you have to have. You have to have players who elevate their game slightly to put the other team away. And the Pacers appear to have 2 players who do that, and Tyrese Halliburton and Pascal Siakam, given the history that we've seen from these guys. And they're going to have to be great tonight if they want to close Cleveland out on the road, especially if Donovan Mitchell plays, which it seems like he's going to. Once again, he is at shoot-around this morning shooting a basketball. But look, shoot-around and a real game are 2 very, very different things. They just are. So we'll see kind of what ends up happening there. But in addition to the Pacers stars being great, all of the other things that they've done so well in this series will have to continue. They've outshot the Cavaliers in every game. They've played great defense. And like that's why they've outshot the Cavaliers. Like their defense has just been awesome throughout the series. Even in the game that they lost, the Cavaliers only shot 42% from the floor in Game 3, which is bizarre. If you were at that game, it just felt like the Cavaliers never missed. Okay, you say, well, Jonathan, if they shot so poorly, then why did the Pacers lose? Because the Pacers, I guess, thought that rebounding was optional that night. Also, Halliburton only had 4 points. That's brutal. Anyway, so if the Pacers can continue to play good defense, they're going to have a chance to win. Like the thing that the Cavaliers hung their hat on during the regular season was their ability to shoot threes. They were the best three-point shooting team in the NBA when you combine like the number of threes that they took and the percentage at which they made them. Okay, they were the best three-point shooting team in the NBA, and the Pacers have done an excellent job of not allowing them to make threes. Now, the Cavaliers shot 40% from 3 in Game 4, but they only shot 26.5% from 3 in the first half of that game. Like, it was all the bench guys who made threes for Cleveland in Game 4. And outside of that, they've shot around 30% from 3 as a team, in Games 1, 2, and 3. So, once again, the Pacers have done a very good job defensively against Cleveland. That's going to have to continue if they want a chance to win. Also, their bench is going to have to continue to be better than Cleveland's. Okay, that is the other thing that made the Cavaliers appear to be a team good enough to win the NBA Finals. Like, coming into the postseason, if you said, hey, like, what separates Cleveland from, everybody else in terms of, hey, this team's good enough to win the NBA Finals? It was the offense and the bench production. Like, those are the 2 things that the Cavaliers do at a high level. And the Pacers have been better than them at both of those things. The Pacers have shot the ball better from 3 in this series than Cleveland, and they've gotten more production from their bench. Okay, the Cavaliers bench has outscored the Pacers bench only once so far in this series, and that was Game 1. And I would even argue that even though the Cavaliers bench scored more points in Game 1, the Pacers bench was more impactful just because it was more balanced. Like, they had multiple guys scoring the basketball, whereas for Cleveland, really only 2 guys had, scored the ball. And a lot of that was just Ty Jerome, who had 20 points in that game. It's the only good game that he's played all series. So if the Pacers can continue to find ways to, shoot the ball better than Cleveland from three, that's really been more of a defensive thing than an offensive thing for the Pacers. And if they can continue to get great production from TJ McConnell and Obi Toppin and Benedict Mathurin off the bench, because those have really been the three guys who have led that offensive charge off the bench for the Pacers in this series. Like if that continues to happen, then they're going to have a great chance to win the game. And then, of course, Tyrese Haliburton and Pascal Siakam have to be stars, which I just kind of expect for them to do. Okay, so that's what I think. If Donovan Mitchell plays, I think the game's going to be super close, and all those things are going to be very important. If he doesn't play, though, Pacers cruise. I know they lost Game 5 to the Bucks last year when Giannis and Damian Lillard didn't play, but this team's different from last year. They're better. Like they are. Tyrese Haliburton's a better player. He's been much more consistent in these playoffs than he was last year. Pascal Siakam is still awesome. Benedict Mathurin's actually available. Obi Toppin has improved as a player as well. So if Donovan Mitchell doesn't play, the game won't be close. Simple as that. But I do expect for Mitchell to play. How limited he is, I think we'll know early. We're going to know really, really early. But hey, we'll see. When we come back here in about 4 minutes, more thoughts on Donovan Mitchell, who, it seems like he's going to play tonight. The 7.5 point line kind of points to that. And the fact that he's at shoot around also points to that. So when we come back here in about 4 minutes, we'll talk more about what's going on with Donovan Mitchell.
The best takes. Maybe. The Real Jonathan Smith Show on Indy Sports Ticket 1430 AM, 93.9 HD2, and always on the free Indy Sports Ticket app.
Welcome back to the Real Jonathan Smith Show here on Indy's Sports Ticket. Hopefully you're having a nice week. Donovan Mitchell, dude's a stud. He is listed as a game-time decision for tonight's Game 5 between the Pacers and the Cleveland Cavaliers, but Donovan Mitchell's going to play. He's at shoot-around right now, getting shots up, getting ready to go. And let's also just throw in the fact that the Cavaliers are 7.5-point favorites, and that would not be the case if Donovan Mitchell wasn't playing in this game. And I'm not surprised that this dude's playing because he's just tough, man. He's a really good player. He's about winning. He's just a stud. And I think one of the things that I don't like about the people that watch the NBA is it's tough to win a 7-game series. The issue is Michael Jordan and Kobe Bryant, LeBron James and Steph Curry and all these guys have made it look so easy to win in the playoffs that we just forget how hard it is to win. You know, Donovan Mitchell is, to me, he's different from a lot of the other dudes who haven't won in the playoffs. He's been consistently great. He's one of 7 players in the history of the NBA to average 28 points per game or more over the course of his NBA playoff career. The other 6 guys on that list are Michael Jordan, Luka Doncic, the only 2 guys to average 30 points per game in the playoffs for their NBA careers. Allen Iverson, Kevin Durant, Jerry West, and LeBron James. It's a great list to be on. Okay, and then obviously the 7th one is Donovan Mitchell. But he consistently raises his level of play in the playoffs. And that's what people want from stars. It's one of the biggest things whenever we talk about like the legacy of players. Like we want to know that so-and-so was awesome in the playoffs. Like that's why people love Michael Jordan. It's part of why people love LeBron James. It's part of why people love Steph Curry. You remember second half, Game 6, 2019? They're playing the Rockets. Steph Curry hasn't scored in the first half, and everyone's like, oh, Steph Curry overrated, blah, 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 blah. And then he scores 36 in the second half. It was awesome. It's one of the coolest, NBA playoff games I've ever watched, is just watching him just erupt and hit all these crazy shots. And Houston fans were like, geez, not again. Maybe that was 2018, but either way, you get my point. We value guys who raise their level of play in the NBA playoffs. And Donovan Mitchell is a guy who has done that consistently throughout his entire career. He has. And it's really a shame that this guy's never made it to the conference finals. And because he hasn't made it to the conference finals, he's about to enter this Joel Embiid type territory. Now, he's not as good as Joel Embiid, so it won't be as harsh. But Joel Embiid takes crap all the time for not making it to the Eastern Conference Finals. By the way, Joel Embiid completely deserves it. Donovan Mitchell, however, I would argue, does not, because of the way that we've seen him elevate his game in the playoffs. Like, everyone who's watched the Pacers in this series understands why I say that. Because you and I have, watched him go for 40 points in back-to-back games in games 2 and 3. We've watched him single-handedly carry this offense because Darius Garland's hurt and Evan Mobley's banged up and DeAndre Hunter hasn't, he's got a messed up thumb and Ty Jerome hasn't been very good. Donovan Mitchell's been the best player on the floor in every game except for game 1. It's really that simple. He's gotten to the rim at will. His jump shot hasn't been falling in this series, but he can get a good look at the rim on a jumper whenever he wants to. Like, he just creates space so easily, and he's really strong. He's also just a ton of fun to watch. Like, there are some guys, their signature move is kind of boring. Donovan Mitchell is not one of those guys. The sham god, the pick up and over, gather and all that. He's fun to watch. And he's been amazing in this series, and he deserves zero slander when this is all said and done. Joel Embiid, however, good playoff performer, but hasn't really raised his game to the same level that Donovan Mitchell has consistently throughout his career. Joel Embiid deserves the slander. Donovan Mitchell Does not, but that doesn't matter. He's going to get it because that's just how the NBA works. And selfishly, I hope he doesn't play tonight because, Donovan Mitchell doesn't play, then the Pacers' chances of winning tonight go up pretty exponentially because he's just, an awesome player. No other word for it, really. And he's been the guy for Cleveland this entire series, and the Pacers don't really have much of an answer for him. And if he's not available, then the offense falls onto hobbled Darius Garland and his clearly messed up toe, and Evan Mobley, who outside of game one hasn't been impactful. I wonder how, that ankle is kind of holding up. And Ty Jerome's been bad all series except for game one, and DeAndre Hunter's been irrelevant outside of the excellent acting job to get Benedict Mathurin tossed in game four. If Donovan Mitchell doesn't play, then just give the Pacers the win and let's move on. Seriously. Because the Cavaliers have no chance without that guy. I mean, in game two, he was plus 14. And they lost. They were minus 15 when he was off the floor. That's crazy. That's insane. This guy is one of the best playoff performers that we've seen. He's an absolute stud. He's been in the league for 8 years, and every time this guy has made the playoffs, you just know that he's going to be a stud when he walks out onto the floor. And he's done that again this year. It scares the bejesus out of me for him to walk out onto that floor tonight because you know that he's going to get to the rim at will, and he's probably going to get fouled a ton. And he's, it's just brutal if he plays tonight. So hopefully he doesn't. He will, though. Once again, the 7.5 point line points to that. Because if he wasn't playing, then the line would probably be like 1.5 or 2.5. He's worth that many points in Vegas. And then in addition to that, he, is the offense for this team so far in this series. And I just don't know how the Cavaliers would survive offensively without him. Now, obviously, Pacers, Cavs, that is, the biggest story. No, it's not. It's one of the biggest stories going on in the NBA, but it's not the only one. The Dallas Mavericks won the lottery last night, and they're probably going to draft Cooper Flagg. I just want to make it clear. The NBA draft lottery is not rigged in any way, shape, or form. I get it. It was very improbable for the Dallas Mavericks to win the lottery last night. I get it. 1.8% chance to get the number one overall pick, and they won it. And it all happens right after they trade Luka Doncic to the Lakers. And conspiracy theories happen, because that's what this is. Conspiracy theories happen when a lot of people are upset about something or they don't like the result of something. And obviously Wizards fans and Hornets fans and Jazz fans and every other team that had a better chance to win the lottery than the Dallas Mavericks, they're all obviously very upset about this. And rightfully so. I get it. I'd be upset too. I would be, seriously. But it's not rigged. It's not. In fact, this is par for the course since 2019. In 2019, the NBA changed the odds of the lottery to get teams to not tank. And the odds changed. It went from, the team with the worst record in the league, they had a 25% chance to win the lottery, and then it worked its way down from there. It doesn't work that way anymore. Now the teams with the 3 worst records in the NBA have, a 14% chance, all 3 of them, to win the NBA draft lottery. And since 2019, when those odds changed, we are yet to see the team with the worst record in the NBA win the lottery. We've also had a couple instances where teams with low percentage chances to win the lottery won it. Last year, the Hawks won it with a 3% chance to win the lottery. In 2019, the first year that they changed the odds, the Pelicans had a 6% chance to win the number 1 pick, and they did. They drafted Zion that year. We're going to talk more about that because these conspiracy theorists are driving me crazy. This also isn't the first time that a team with criminally low odds has won the NBA draft lottery. The Cavs won it in 2014 with 1.7% draft odds. They won the lottery in 2011 with 2.8% draft odds. The Magic won it in 1993 with a 1.5% chance to win the lottery. And this is back when the team with the worst record in the NBA had a 25% chance to win the lottery. So I'd argue like those are way bigger deals than what happened this year. And I understand that the timing of the Dallas Mavericks winning the lottery makes it look fishy. Seriously, it makes it look fishy, but it wasn't rigged. I'm telling you, like if the NBA was going to rig the NBA draft lottery this year, it wasn't going to be for the Dallas Mavericks. It would have been for Philadelphia or Chicago. Both of those markets are bigger basketball markets than Dallas is, because no matter how good the Mavericks are, the NBA in that city is always going to be second fiddle to the Dallas Cowboys. Meanwhile, in Chicago is a basketball city. Michael Jordan, Derrick Rose, they haven't been good in over a decade. Chicago would have been a great place for Cooper Flagg to go. The 76ers, they are dying for a winner up there. Those are the teams that the NBA would have rigged the draft lottery for, not the Dallas Mavericks. So no, I don't think that it was rigged. And after the draft happened, after the lottery happened, I get on Twitter or X, whatever, and I see all these graphics, and it's like every time the NBA draft lottery was rigged, there was like a big trade that happened, and then the NBA rewarded that team for making that trade. Well, how about we just look at all the times the big trade was made, and they didn't win the number one pick. The 76ers traded Charles Barkley to the Suns in the early 90s, and they were never rewarded with the number one pick for making that trade. When the Wizards sent Chris Webber to the Kings in 1998, making the Sacramento Kings an awesome team there in the early 2000s, yeah, they were never rewarded with the number one overall pick. The Clippers and the Bulls actually won it the next two seasons. In 2019, the Thunder sent Paul George to the Clippers, Los Angeles, the second biggest market in the NBA. They sent him to the Clippers to play with Kawhi Leonard. Yeah, the Thunder were never rewarded with the number one overall pick. It went to the Pelicans and the Timberwolves the next 2 years. In 2006, the 76ers sent Allen Iverson to Denver to play with Carmelo Anthony. 76ers were never rewarded with the number one overall pick. The Raptors actually got it that year. Just a few years ago, we saw the Portland Trailblazers send Damian Lillard to the Bucks, and they weren't rewarded with the number one overall pick. They weren't. They just sent Damian Lillard to go play with Giannis, and the NBA just said, thanks, you don't get the number one overall pick. Or maybe, I don't know, maybe the NBA draft lottery just isn't rigged. In 2008, the Grizzlies sent Pau Gasol to the Lakers, handed them 2 NBA titles because of that trade. And in return, they got Marcus. They got a whole bunch of nothing. And Marc Gasol ended up being a good player, but at the time, he wasn't a good player. And the Memphis Grizzlies didn't win the lottery. The Bulls did. They won it that year in 2011. Also, 2011, the Nuggets were not rewarded with the number one overall pick after they sent Carmelo Anthony, one of the biggest stars in the NBA at that point. The Nuggets were never rewarded for sending Carmelo Anthony to the New York Knicks, the largest market in the NBA, and honestly, a Knicks team that had been irrelevant for quite a while when that trade was made. If there was any time to rig the lottery for a team that, helped the NBA out by moving a star player somewhere else, it would have been 2011, 2012 when the Nuggets moved Carmelo Anthony to New York. The lottery's not rigged. I get it. There have been a few weird coincidences. 2019, after the Pelicans traded Anthony Davis, they won the lottery. Let's also remember, they were awful that year. They had the 7th best odds to win the lottery that year. That's really not that crazy when we've seen how the pattern has happened, because 2019 is obviously the first year that the odds of the lottery changed. And we've seen it now multiple times where a team that probably shouldn't win it has won it. In 2013 and 2014, the Cavaliers were awful. They were terrible. Also, who's rigging the lottery for Cleveland? One of the smallest markets in the NBA. Also, of course they won the lottery those years. It's amazing. LeBron James leaves, and all of a sudden, your team becomes awful. When Kyrie Irving's your best player, I think we've seen it enough. You're not a playoff team. You're not going to be very good. Okay, I get it. 2014, they only had a 1.7% chance, but sometimes crazy things happen. Just go back to 93 when the Magic won it, and they had a 1.5% chance. Okay? Like, that's just how the lottery works sometimes. Okay? Also, 2012, the Hornets trade Chris Paul, and then they won the lottery, and they draft Anthony Davis. Well, guess what? They should have won the lottery. They had a 15% chance to win the lottery that year. In 2011, 18 months after LeBron left the Cavaliers, they won the lottery with only a 2.8% chance, and they got Kyrie Irving. Again, I ask, who is rigging the lottery for the Cleveland Cavaliers? I promise you, no one in the NBA is sitting around trying to figure out how to make the Cavaliers and the Pelicans awesome. Those are two small markets, and New Orleans is a terrible basketball city. Cleveland's not. Cleveland is a very good basketball city. But you see my point. If they were rigging the lottery, they would rig it for, the Lakers, Bulls, and Knicks every year. Like, those are the three teams that they would rig it for, because those are the three, meccas of basketball in each part of the country. And obviously, the Midwest is Chicago, the West is LA, the Northeast is New York. That's who they would rig it for. They wouldn't rig it for Dallas, where they're always going to be second fiddle to the Cowboys. If they were to rig it for any Texas team, it would be San Antonio. By the way, they got the second pick. That's a much bigger deal than people are making it out to be. Part of that is just because of the Mavericks thing, but I get it. Okay? The NBA draft lottery isn't rigged. Sometimes crazy things just happen. When we come back here in about 4 minutes, the Knicks and the Celtics are going to, that series is almost over. Jason Tatum gets hurt. I feel really bad for the dude. But it sets us up for a very highly likely Pacers and Knicks Eastern Conference Finals, which is great for the Pacers. I would much rather play the Knicks than the Celtics. That's just me. Maybe you disagree. I don't know. But that does appear to be the better matchup for the Pacers. So I'm going to jump the gun a little bit and talk a little bit of Knicks versus Pacers in the Eastern Conference Finals when we come back here in about 4 minutes.
The future is bright, Central Indiana. Monica Peck here from Hare Chevrolet. It's graduation season, but you can leave the cap and gown at home, because this month we're helping people graduate from their old rides. We'll help you save up to $4,000 on a nicer, newer car based on the price of the car you pick. You could even drive a 2025 Chevy Equinox for $269 per month. Plus, here at Hare Chevrolet, we're all about acceptance and affordability. We work hard to help you find a car you love for a monthly payment you can afford. So ditch your old ride like it's the last day of class and save up to $4,000 based on the price of the nicer, newer car you pick. Plus, bring bring in your diploma and get an extra $1,000 off. But hurry, classes end soon, and so will this deal. Together, let's drive at Hare Chevrolet, a dealer for the people, next to Walmart on Highway 37 in Noblesville. Call 877-666-1414 or see all the deals at
If it's in today's sports world, it's here. The real Jonathan Smith Show on Indy Sports Ticket 1430 AM, 93.9 HD2, and always on the free Indy Sports Ticket app.
Welcome back to the real Jonathan Smith Show here on Indy's Sports Ticket. Hopefully you're having a nice start to your week. Hopefully you have your schedule cleared. Pacers, Cavaliers tonight, 7 o'clock. Pacers are currently 7.5-point underdogs, which means Donovan Mitchell is very likely going to play. I don't think it's going to matter. I like the Pacers to win the game one way or the other because they've just very simply been the better of the two teams throughout this entire series. Now, we're set up for a Knicks and Pacers Eastern Conference Finals, which it just gets me buzzing, man. I'm juiced. I'm ready to go. The Garden. Pacers, the choke sign, Reggie Miller. Also, the game will be like that is the TNT series this year, which means Kevin Harlan, Reggie Miller on the call. It's going to be great. I can't wait. With that being said, I do feel bad for Jason Tatum. You know, he gets hurt, non-contact, looked like he tore his Achilles. The Knicks were probably going to win that game anyway. They were up when the injury happens, but Jason Tatum was having an awesome game. And, with Jason Tatum likely being out for the foreseeable future, it looks like the Knicks are going to play the Pacers. Both teams are now up 3-1. The Pacers have a chance to punch their ticket tonight. And I can't wait for this very likely series to happen. It's going to be electric for many, many reasons. The clashing of styles is going to be fascinating. The Knicks want to play slow. The Pacers want to play fast. The Knicks are more willing to isolate Karl Anthony Towns and Jalen Brunson. Meanwhile, the Pacers are not going to isolate Tyrese Halliburton and Pascal Siakam all that often. They're going to run their motion offense, and all five guys on the floor are going to touch the basketball, and it's going to be awesome. The Knicks, they're going to go maybe 8 deep. Pacers go 11 deep. I'm not convinced the Knicks are. I don't think they like all 8 of the players that they play. Campaigns on the floor sometimes, and you're just like, oh. Mitchell Robinson's been really good in that series against Boston. Don't know how impactful he'll be against the Pacers. Both teams have outstanding point guards. Jalen Brunson and Tyrese Halliburton are 2 of the best point guards in the NBA. Like, you could make an argument that they're the second and third. I'm trying to think of who else you might put in front of them. Obviously, Curry. No one else really comes to mind. So it's a matchup with these 2 amazing point guards. Both teams also have some real flaws that you can go after. Tyrese Halliburton, not a very good defender, but neither is Jalen Brunson or Karl Anthony Towns. So there's holes for the teams to attack as well. And then you look at depth in certain spots. It's a little spotty. Like the Pacers don't really have a backup center. Like I like Thomas Bryant, but I don't know. He looks more like a power forward to me sometimes. The Knicks don't have any backup wings. It's just OG Anunoby and Mikal Bridges. And that's it. And I know that the Pacers beat the Knicks in an epic series last year, but both of these teams are so different from last year to this year. The Pacers are just better. Like players, like Tyrese Halliburton is just a better player than he was last year. Ben Shepherd played a lot of important minutes for the Pacers last year. That hasn't happened as much in these playoffs. They have Benedict Mathurin back this year. Jarris Walker has showed up for occasionally. He was really good in that series against Milwaukee. Hasn't been as good against the Cavaliers. But hey, when you're a role player, some series they just aren't for you. So maybe this will be a good series for Jarris Walker. We'll see. But the Knicks, they obviously added Mikal Bridges. They obviously added Karl Anthony Towns. So this is going to be an electric series if it winds up happening, because we have seen teams come back from down 3-1 before. Obviously, the most famous one, the Cavaliers in the NBA Finals against the Warriors. But it's happened, I think, 18 times. So there is a chance for the Celtics or the Cavaliers to come back and win their series. And I got to be honest, like for the Celtics, I just feel bad. I appreciate that they ran it back. They brought everyone back. They tried to repeat as champions, but they're gonna have to bust up this team in the offseason because it's an incredibly expensive roster, and they just simply can't afford to keep it together. And to have it all come to an end because your best player gets hurt, it's just tough. It sucks. And he was awesome in that game, man. He had 42 points. This is Jason Tatum's line before he got hurt. 42 points, 8 rebounds, 4 assists, 4 steals, 2 blocks. He was having just the game of his life in the biggest game of the Celtics season in Madison Square Garden after facing all this scrutiny and rightfully so after games 1 and 2. Like it's cool, I think, seeing players respond to criticism with big games in big moments, and Jason Tatum was doing that. So it really sucks that he got hurt. It's good for the Pacers, though, because now they're going to play the Knicks instead of the Celtics. And if they do play the Celtics, Jason Tatum probably won't be available. So good for the Pacers. They need to win tonight. Don't go to a game 6. Charles Barkley, I probably should have grabbed the audio. Oh, good, though. Charles Barkley had a quote after the Pacers won game 4. And he was just looking ahead to game 5. And he was talking about how important it was going to be for the Pacers to win that game. Because if you lose tonight, there's a ton of pressure on game 6. Because going back to Cleveland, game 7, like that is going to be, especially after the Cavaliers had just won 2 in a row, like that is going to be a really tough environment and a really tough place to go in there and win. And at that point, you're 6 days further into Donovan Mitchell healing up a little bit, and you're 6 days further into Darius Garland, Evan Mobley, and DeAndre Hunter kind of figuring out how to get healthy. So it's going to be really big tonight for the Pacers to win. It's going to be so freaking important. And the games tonight they're just going to be awesome. There's really just no other way to really put it. You've got this amazing series between Cleveland and Indiana because the games have been good. Like game 1 was close. Game 2, you have the crazy Pacers comeback. Game 3, meh. Game 4, you have this just outstanding shooting performance from Indiana. And I think we're going to see something tonight that looks much, much more like game 2 as opposed to like tonight's going to look much closer to games 1 and 2 than it did games 3 and 4. I do not think tonight will be a blowout. I think tonight is going to be a tough, hard-fought game. And if the game is going to be tough and it's going to come down to the wire and it's about who executes better down the stretch, give me the Pacers. Because that's just what this team does. They execute their offense at an incredibly high level. And it's why they're up 3-1. Like they just have gotten better shots than the Cavaliers have this entire series. That includes game 3. They got good shots in game 3. They just didn't make them. That happens sometimes. So give me the Pacers tonight. That 7.5 point line is way too freaking high. Way too high. And the last topic that I want to hit on before I wrap up and I throw the show over to Dan Dockich, who's obviously going to be on from noon to 3. You can listen to a show via the Indy Sports Ticket app, which you can download wherever you find your apps. I think that it's never a bad idea to talk about Michael Jordan when it comes to sports talk radio, because that is a name that moves the needle for everybody, young and old. Seriously, everyone loves this guy or hates this guy. If you're a LeBron James fan, that is also in the cards for some people. So NBC has hired him as like a special consultant, something like that, to talk about the games during their broadcasts this next year. And it's a great hire for NBC because there are people who are going to watch the games on NBC just because Michael Jordan is involved. And people want to hear what he has to say about the NBA. And the thing that I like about it is he's a former player, but every comment I've heard him make about the current NBA has been positive. He has relationships with a lot of these players because of the Jordan brand. He has signed multiple of these athletes. And another thing that I think matters is he's going to be mostly positive because he has the Jordan brand and he wants to sign more of these athletes. And if he's on NBC trashing dudes, then, it may be a little bit tougher to sign some of these big-time NBA players to shoe deals and things of that nature. Like, I'm a huge fan of inside the NBA, but Charles Barkley, Shaq, Kenny, they tend to be a little more negative than positive, and I do think that has an impact on how people view the game because, look, man, if you know anything about Charles Barkley, Shaquille O'Neal, and Kenny Smith, then you know that you need to appreciate whatever their opinions are. And if Michael Jordan, and he starts, praising how guys play now, and, it may change how people talk about and perceive the game. I think it's a great hire for the NBA as well, because I think it's always good when you have your legends involved with the sport. Like Tom Brady being hired by Fox was great for Fox because he's Tom Brady and people want to listen to him. But it's also great for the NFL because you want guys who have helped build and evolve whatever your game is. Like, you want them involved in that. And the other thing, obviously, for the NBA is whenever Michael Jordan is involved in anything, people pay attention to it. And because Michael Jordan's involved, it is automatically going to draw more eyeballs. So I think it's a very, very good thing that, NBC went out and made this hire. But once again, Pacers, Cavaliers tonight at 7:00. Clear the calendar. Watch the Pacers go into Cleveland and win their third straight road game. If the Pacers win tonight, then the Cleveland Cavaliers will have lost 10 road games on the season. Or excuse me, 10 home games between the playoffs and the regular season. The Cavaliers will have lost 10 of them. 5 of them will have come to the Indiana Pacers. Is Cleveland just, or wherever they play, is it just Gainbridge North? Honest question. Kind of kidding, kind of not. But the Pacers, they've had, pretty solid performances in that building throughout this season, and I can't wait to watch the game tonight. Once again, give me the Pacers. They are 7.5-point underdogs. Donovan Mitchell probably going to play because, the line points to that, and he is also present at shoot-around as of right now. So looks like we're going to get another full-strength Cavs team, and the Pacers are going to have their work cut out for them to win the game tonight. Give me the Pacers. This game is not coming back to Indy. They're moving on to the Eastern Conference Finals tonight. Coming up here in about 5 minutes, the Dan Dockett Show gets going. A couple great guests, Anthony Lima, Eddie White, both lined up to talk Pacers and Cavaliers. Going to be a great show. The Dan Dockett Show comes your way next. Thank you for taking the time out of your day to watch The Real Jonathan Smith Show. I'll be back on again tomorrow from 10 to noon. And if you want more from me, go check out the My Take Is YouTube page.